and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hello, my name is Nick Romano, President of the Bonita Bay Veterans Council. Thanks to our Bonita Bay singers for being with us today. The BBVC has been celebrating Memorial Day for the past 6 years, and the Bay singers have been with us each step along the way. Without them, it would not be the same. Memorial Day is a time to remember those who wore the cloth of this nation and who pledged their lives to support and defend our Constitution. It is because of these patriots that our nation is strong and resilient. Every day, but particularly on Memorial Day, we take time to honor the memory of those who gave their lives in order to preserve our freedom and liberty. We are forever grateful for those who have served or are currently serving. Last year, no one could have predicted the challenges our country has endured over the past 14 months. Be assured that we are continuing our mission of helping veterans and their families at this very critical time of need. It is due to your generous donations and support that we have been able to continue our mission. Before I introduce our keynote speaker, I would like to give you a brief update of the things that we've been able to accomplish. Since the Bonita Bay Veterans Council inception 6 years ago, we have made over 800 donations, supporting over 7,000 veterans and their families. We have raised over $1 million and donated $750,000 to those in need. And the most important thing, over 98% of all the money collected goes directly to the veterans. We have a mobile food pantry every month at the VA in Cape Coral, where we average over 300 veterans receive up to 2 weeks' supply of food and necessities. We have created scholarship programs for FGCU University and Bonita Springs and Estero High Schools. We have received numerous awards and commendations from many organizations such as United Way, the City of Bonita Springs, Daughters of the Revolution, Florida Gulf Coast University, and the State of Florida Veteran Service Medal presented to the BBVC members by Senator Rick Scott. And now I have the honor and privilege to introduce our keynote speaker, Rich Pilla. Rich was born and raised in New York City borough of Queens. He was drafted into the U.S. Army and inducted on July 3rd, 1967. He spent 2 years in the Army and was honorably discharged as a specialist 4th class on May 27th, 1969. Rich spent almost the entire year 1968, in Vietnam, and was awarded the following decorations, medals, and campaign ribbons: Combat Infantry Badge, Vietnam Service Medal with 2 Bronze Service Stars, Republic of Vietnam Campaign Medal, Meritorious Unit Commendation, and National Defense Service Medal and Sharpshooter. After being discharged, Rich returned to his job at Citibank in New York and resumed his education under the GI Bill, receiving his BBA from Pace University in 1977 and his MBA from Fordham University in 1979. Rich completed his 40 years career in 2008 as the Director of People Development for the Global Consumer Finance staff of over 1,000 people. He was also an adjunct professor at Long Island from 2000 to 2007. Rich is also on the board of directors for the Bonita Bay Veterans Council. Rich, would you please join us?
Thank you, Nick. Thank you all for being here and watching this video. As Nick mentioned, I know it's probably hard for a lot of you to believe, I was born and raised in New York City. A lot of people down in Florida here tell me I have an accent, but I don't really hear it. But I definitely heard it when I got in the Army. I just want to give you a little background so you can appreciate the adjustment I had to make when I went in the service. I went to parochial Catholic school for 12 years. I did not know anyone that was not a Catholic. So when it comes to diversity, I had zero diversity. I was never on an airplane until I went into service. Washington, D.C. was the furthest I had ever been. So that leads up to, I get my notice, greetings from President of the United States in mid-June 1967. And at the time, you know, Vietnam was escalating unbelievably. So there was no doubt anybody who was 1A, meaning you were physically able to get drafted, would serve. So I got my draft notice. I got inducted, as Nick said, July 3rd, 1967. And I didn't even fly. At Fort Hamilton, Brooklyn, we took a train from Brooklyn to Columbia, South Carolina. And from there, started my basic training. Now, one thing I didn't realize, again, not being a person of the world, I didn't realize July and August I'm going to spend in South Carolina in basic training. Do you know how hot it's going to be there? And I lost about 25 pounds. So 8 weeks of that. And the other issue I had there was the drill sergeants were mostly from the South. And I think a lot of them wanted to get an interpreter to interpret what I was saying to them so they could understand it. Because people from New York have a tendency to talk very quickly. So I finished my 8-week basic training, and I say nothing could be as difficult as this. And then I got my orders to go to Fort Polk, Louisiana, Tigerland, for advanced infantry training. Now, I thought nothing could be worse than basic training. Advanced infantry training was unbelievable. We take a plane from Columbia to Shreveport, Louisiana, and we get to Fort Polk, like it was a midnight on a Saturday night. I'll never forget it. And we pull in a bus, and we're waiting like 15 minutes. All of a sudden, this drill sergeant gets on the bus. He says, "Welcome to Fort Polk, Louisiana, Tigerland. You'll be here for 9 weeks in training to go to Vietnam." He said, "And every place you go in that 9 weeks, you will run. When you're outside the barracks, you will run everywhere. And every time your left foot hits the ground, you will yell, 'Kill.'" Oh, man. This is not a cool environment to be in. And sure enough, we get off the bus, and everybody's running around going, "Kill, kill, kill." Oh, man. Anyway, so the 9 weeks of advanced infantry training, you know, it was a lot of training on guns, but it didn't prepare me for what I experienced in Vietnam. I came home on leave for 2 weeks, and then December 6, 1967, flew from New York to Seattle, Washington, where we got processed through Fort Lewis, went from Seattle to Anchorage, Alaska to Tokyo, Japan, and then Tokyo, Japan to Cam Ranh Bay, Vietnam. Now, Cam Ranh Bay was a base that was built. I guess I got some materials on Vietnam and did some homework on it. About 1965, when the war was escalating, the Air Force built this Air Force base, Cam Ranh Bay Air Force Base, which is about 225 miles northeast of Saigon, what was Saigon then. and it's right on the South China Sea. So I spent 2 days there getting processed. And from there, I got to find out where I was going. I'm going to the 1st Air Cavalry Division, Air Mobile, the 1st Battalion, 50th Infantry. Now, Air Mobile means that a lot of places we went on helicopters, UE helicopters. And the unit I was in was mechanized, meaning we rode around in small armored personnel carriers. Not small, they held about 10 people. In fact, I'm going to show you this picture of it. As you can see, we used to ride on the APCs, and it was better than walking through the jungles, but it was also had its its drawbacks. But I'll have a story about APCs in a little while. So from Ankei, which is where the 1st Air Cavalry Division was headquartered, we got transferred up to what's called a landing zone, a fire base, LZ Uplift. And it was basically for the 4 months I was out in the field in combat, it was where we would go back. We'd go out to the jungles for maybe 3 or 4 weeks, come back for 3 or 4 days, and I tell you, when we got back to this landing zone, it was like getting into a Four Seasons. I mean, we finally had some place where you could take a shower, use the facilities and just relax. Because being out in the jungles for 3 or 4 weeks was, every night we'd have guard duty. And basically, twice during the night, you'd have to get up. So let's say from 11 to 12, you get up for an hour guard duty, get relieved, and 3 to 4. So you never got a full night's sleep. But anyway, so the 1st Cav, and I'm going to share with you 4 experiences I had in Vietnam that I think were life-altering for me. And once you hear them, I appreciate the fact that I'm here today speaking, that I'm alive and that I did not get, wounded. My first experience was, if you were new in country, you got all the lousy jobs. I mean, nobody wanted to get killed if they were there 10 months, and I think almost 1,000 of the 58,200 military that were killed in Vietnam, I think almost 1,000 were killed on their first day there. Now that's bad luck. So I get in my unit, the 1st Battalion, 50th Infantry, and we're riding on these armored personnel carriers, and all of a sudden from this hill, a sniper takes a shot. So the company commander decides we're going to stop and we're going to search this hill. Wow. And then one of the lieutenants told us, well, the nickname for the hill was Booby Trap Hill. Now, this is not someplace I want to go wandering around. Booby Trap Hill is, so there were 2 flanks. I was on this side, the first person on the left side, and there may be 12 of us. And then the right side, there were another 12. We started walking up this hill on either side, and we couldn't have got 100 yards, and this guy hits a booby trap. Right? So we pulled back, the medevac helicopters came and took him away, and we finally, some common sense came into it and said, why are we searching something called Booby Trap Hill? And it made me realize how lucky I was. If I had been picked to go on the right side, that would have been me that hit the booby trap. So that's my first experience in combat, and made me realize how lucky I was. Now the next thing I did, so maybe a couple of weeks later, we had to go from point A to point B on a UE helicopter. Now I don't know if you've ever seen a UE helicopter. It's one blade, and so the helicopters come in, and I go running to get on a helicopter. And unfortunately, as I said, the new person always got the worst job. I was the last one to get on. Now there was nobody saying, please fasten your seatbelt, right? I get on a helicopter. I'm carrying an M60 machine gun. I got a belt on with bullets and hand grenades, and I get on as soon as I get on, it takes off. I'm saying, oh God. And I'm on the doors are open. And I'm on I had a window seat, which was great. So the helicopter takes off, and it goes up about a couple thousand feet, and I'm looking down, and I'm holding on for dear life. I'm saying, if I do, give my life to my country in Vietnam, I don't want it to be because I fell out of a helicopter. That's a very inglorious way to pass on. But anyway, so when we got down and landed, I couldn't wait to get on the ground because I had no training for this. When I was at Fort Polk I had never been on a helicopter in my life, and to this day, I'm reluctant to get on helicopters. It's just It's just too scary for me. My third experience, so there's another time I could have not been here today. My third experience was a couple of weeks later. We're walking down a trail, and I take a step, and all of a sudden I feel the ground give way. And fortunately, my left leg was still on solid ground, and the ground opens up, and it was called a punji pit. These punji stakes were made out of bamboo, and they were sharpened, just hoping that somebody, one of us would fall in there, and if not get killed, get severely wounded, get infections. So again, I was very lucky. I was starting to feel like a cat that had 9 lives. And then what happens next? January 31st, 1968, the Tet Offensive happens. Now, I had been transferred within my unit. I was now on one of these armored personnel carriers, but there was somebody who drove the armored personnel carrier, and then sitting on top on a turret was a 50 caliber machine gun. Now, 50 caliber machine gun is a big weapon. The bullets are about this big. So for some reason, they gave me that job, which initially I said, wow, this is a pretty good job, because whenever the APC stopped to search a mountain or booby trap hill or whatever, you had to, the driver and I had to stay with the armored personnel carrier. So Tet Offensive happens. A lot of guys get wounded. Fortunately, I was not one of them. And just a little aside, it's an amazing dichotomy of my feelings, because when I left to go to Vietnam, I really didn't think I was going to come back. So saying goodbye to my family and friends was very, very difficult. But while I was there, other than that time on the helicopter, I was not afraid. For some reason, I don't know if it was my Catholic upbringing that, somebody at 21 years old doesn't get killed, but so anyway, Tet Offensive happens, a lot of guys get wounded, and they transfer me to a different armored personnel carrier, and now I'm not on the 50 caliber machine gun anymore. And I was kind of upset about it. They never explained why. 6 days later, February 6th, 1968, we have these 20 APCs riding down this road, and all of a sudden we hear this big explosion. And I was in the middle, right, the 10th, whatever. We go running up, and the lead armored personnel carrier had hit a 500-pound bomb that was planted in the road. And it was the APC I would have been on had I not been transferred. And sorry, I get a little emotional when I think about it. So we were running up there, and the fellow who had been on the 50 caliber machine gun, this gigantic thing got blown off its turret, and the guy's laying there. It hit him in the head. His head is bleeding. His eyeball was sticking out, and we waited for the medevac helicopters to come, and they came, and I don't know what happened to him, but all I could think of was laying there. That should have been me. So the very difficult thing about being in a combat situation is the fact that happens. The medevac helicopters come, and then you got to get back to work. So it's not like you had a grieving period to think about it, or it was just, something had to go on. In mid-April, all of a sudden one day, and I've been out in the jungles now for 4 months, all of a sudden one day they come to me and say, you're being transferred. I had no idea why, no idea where. So we get on a C-130 plane and we fly to Nha Trang, South Vietnam. Now Nha Trang is a city on the South China Sea. It's right on the South China Sea. And it was the headquarters of the Green Berets. So I spent my last 8 months not in combat. I was like an MP in Nha Trang, which was, when I got off the plane and taking a truck to the base, I couldn't believe I'm seeing guys walking around in bathing suits, and it's like, this is Vietnam. This is not what I was used to. So it was I found out after I got back to the States that my father had been writing to Senator Jacob Javits, a New York State senator in Congress, that I was the only son left to carry on the family name. So that's why they transferred me. So I was very fortunate, and I returned back to the U.S. on December 6th, 1968, and I'll share an experience with you that was, again, in life you do things that you regret sometimes, And while I was in Vietnam, I had a good friend, who was a fourth grade teacher. And one day I came back to my barracks, my bunk, and there were like 100 letters on my bunk. I said, "What's this?" So his class, every student in his class had written me a letter. And it was very, very touching. So he asked me, he wrote me a letter. He said, "Could you come and visit my class when you get back?" So I said, "Sure, I'd be honored." Now, being a Vietnam veteran at the time was not exactly something you were proud of. You know, we all know, those of us old enough to have experienced it, we weren't greeted with parades. So the thing I regret very much is I went and spoke to the class, but I didn't wear my uniform. And these kids were looking for somebody in uniform, not somebody in a leather jacket, you know, with jeans on. You know, but I spoke to them. But again, it made me, I went through this transformation, you know, about having been a Vietnam veteran. So when I finished my month leave, I got sent to Fort Hood, Texas. And I spent my last 5 months in Fort Hood, Texas. And I don't know what I was doing. I was doing a lot of partying, that's for sure. You know, I had this combat infantryman's badge, which meant you had been in combat, and at the time in Vietnam. So nobody messed with us. You know, the fact that we were combat veterans, you know, we basically had the run of doing whatever we want. Then I got discharged in May 1969 and went back to work at Citibank. What did I learn from my experience in Vietnam, or in the military, not just Vietnam? Again, if you think back at what I said before about I was not exposed to any diversity, any other religion, so what I learned was respect people of all races, religions, and ethnic backgrounds. Give everybody a chance. If somebody's not a nice person, or, you know, you'll find that out yourself. But give everybody a chance. Don't prejudge people based on what color they are. In fact, I'll tell you another story. We landed in Fort Lewis, Washington, on our way back from Vietnam, December '68, and we had about 5 hours until our flight was going back to New York. So I was with 4 other soldiers, and we decided to go in a bar and have a drink. Obviously, this was the highlight of my life. Was I returned from Vietnam in one piece with all my marbles, although some people would argue maybe I lost a few of them. And we walked in a bar, and one of the guys was in uniform, was coming home from Vietnam, but he was a black guy, and they wouldn't serve him a drink. I'm telling you, we were, you know, we didn't do anything. We walked out, but it made such an impact on me on how unfair, and this is not meant to be a political statement, but just the fact that the guy was in uniform and just spent a year over there fighting for his country, and you want to give him a drink? You got to be kidding me. Anyway, so I learned to respect people of all races, religions, and colors. I learned discipline. Now, discipline is great. You know, in the military, discipline is paramount to everything. You know, the chain of command. But I also learned there's nothing wrong with questioning if somebody tells you to do something. And it carried forward in my career at Citibank. Why am I doing this? Because, using the booby trap hill as an example, if somebody didn't say, "Why are we doing this? Why are we searching this hill?" probably more guys, including myself, would have either got wounded or killed. So there's nothing wrong. I'm not saying disobey orders, but at least question why we're doing it. So that's the second important thing I learned. The next thing I learned is always keep my highs and lows in perspective. When I left for Vietnam and said goodbye to my family and friends and thought I wasn't coming home, that was the lowest point of my life. I mean, it couldn't be anything more depressing than that. And then when I returned, landed at JFK Airport, and my parents were there and my girlfriend at the time, it was the greatest feeling in the world. You know, I made it back, and so I try to keep my life in perspective in that, you know, if I get down about something, I try to think about, well, you remember when the day you left for Vietnam? Nothing's worse than that. I mean, I know triple bogeys are bad, but they don't compare to that. You know, so you have to always look at life. I try to, but, you know, the longer time passes, this past December was 52 years since I returned from Vietnam. So, I mean, it's so long ago now, it's hard to remember some of the stuff, even though I bought a book on photographs taken in Vietnam, and it, you know, brought back a lot of memories for me. And the last thing I learned, you know, that the story about not wearing the uniform to the 4th grade class, which I was now in hindsight, which I feel so bad about, And for so many years, I wouldn't talk about Vietnam. I wouldn't say anything about it. And until, I'll never forget, it was the first night of the Operation Desert Storm. And I went out there for a couple of beers with a couple of guys that worked for me. And they were both in their mid-20s. And we're watching, you know, that was 91, I guess, January 91. We're watching on the TV. And when the two 25-year-olds learned I had been in Vietnam, they were like, wow. The respect that they showed, because they had never seen a war, never experienced a war. So it made me realize that even though the war was probably something that was not a national highlight, it was still something that those of us that came, those of us that went, those of us that, you know, made the ultimate sacrifice, you know, should not be ashamed of it. They should be proud of it. So, you know, I've gone through that change, and now I am proud that I'm a veteran, you know, and part of the Bonita Bay Veterans Council. And, you know, it molded me, my experience in the military molded me into the person I became. Again, this very sheltered childhood I had, I was not prepared for the real world. But, you know, being in the military, being in combat, definitely prepared me for that. A couple of statistics, when I looked up Vietnam, do you know that in tonnage terms, 4 times as many bombs were dropped in Vietnam than all of World War II? Now think about that. That's unbelievable. Because whenever we encountered something, you know, B-52 bombers would come and you couldn't even see them, but bombs, I mean, it was so, but 4 times as many in all of World War II. That was incredible. And there were when we talk about, you know, Memorial Day, which we remember our comrades, our fellow Americans who made the ultimate sacrifice, almost 1.4 million Americans have been killed in wars in the history of our country. And 58,000, a little over 58,000 were in Vietnam. And I remember going to the wall in Washington, D.C. If you ever get there, it's very, very touching, as is Korea and anything else that honors our veterans. So, in conclusion, I just want to say thank you for listening, and I hope you enjoyed it, and God bless America.
Thank you, Rich. That was an amazing, heartfelt story. Each time you were speaking, I could feel your feeling and what you were doing when you were there in Vietnam and your service. And thank you for your service. It's amazing. I would like to thank the Bonita Bay Singers, Rich Pilla, for taking the time and effort to celebrate Memorial Day with us. Special thanks to Becky and to Jordan and the Bonita Bay Club for making this happen each year. And also thanks to the Board of Directors of the Bonita Bay Veterans Council for your hard work and dedication. Would the Board of Directors please stand and be recognized? Steve Aronson, Nancy Byers, Joe Castro Giovanni, Lou Diamichis, Bob Gillette, Valerie Gorman. Mark Landry is not with us today. Ken Mack is not with us today. Jim Papandrea, and Rich Pilla. The hard work that you have all done over the past 6 years has been absolutely amazing. What we've been able to accomplish each time I think about it is extraordinary. I remember when we started out in the beginning and we raised like $18,000 and were able to help about 4 or 5 veterans, how proud we all were. And now look at where we've come to. This is absolutely amazing. Also, additionally, a special thanks to all of you out there who are watching this video for contributing to our Phantom Gala. It has made a significant difference in our ability to support veterans and their families. Everyone, have a great day. Thank you.